Hi there, guys. My name's Nicole. This is Dr. Chaplik, and Dr. Chaplik is joining us today so we can talk specifically about rosacea and how it tends to flare a little bit more in the summer. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and if you want to dive right into that one, tell us, maybe what you're seeing clinically over the years and patterns with rosacea, and
Well, that's a very good viewpoint, because certainly certain things trigger rosacea. There's rosacea triggers, and in particular one of them is heat, exercise, stress. And we live in South Florida, so how are you going to be able to avoid heat? You can't.
Right.
And who's going to be able to avoid stress? And then no one wants to avoid exercise. So it's a frustrating condition where some of the things that we have to do, enjoy to do, and need to do can sometimes aggravate it. And for those of you who don't know, rosacea basically is characterized by, it has different subtypes, maybe 4 or 5, but the most important one and most people know of is redness. So you get flushed, whether it's from walking up the stairs, or from stress, or from even emotional flushing. Sometimes you'll blush, but some patients over blush. And so the problem with rosacea is that with the more frequent amount of flushing and blushing that you get, the more permanent broken capillaries patients will develop. So much so that whether they're blushing or not, they will look red. And it's even a negative kind of appearance sometimes, where the nose was red. And in the past, people would think that the person with rosacea was a drinker or an alcoholic, but they're not. They just have rosacea and are red.
Right.
And so alcohol is a trigger for rosacea. Typically red wine, but all alcohol can make rosacea trigger, meaning it'll make it more red, make yourself more blushed. So to answer your question, it's challenging, especially in South Florida, to alleviate the flushing and blushing of rosacea, but it's actually a very simple fix, believe it or not.
So do indulge, please.
Okay, well, so most patients and even some doctors don't realize that the crux of rosacea is a skin barrier problem. And so a lot of times,
so that's totally in a different direction than what we were just talking about with just the flushing and blushing and.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about the treatment. So to treat and prevent these conditions and from getting worse and things like that, I'll go over the medications and all that, but I think most people know that there's a medicine.
I want to know more about how is it a skin barrier condition?
So rosacea, a lot of my patients come in and they have dry skin. It's very sensitive. They can't use soaps. They can't use a majority of cleansers. They can't use a majority of moisturizers. So a lot of them come in with the history of, I just wash my face with water. Well, that's one of my first telltale signs. If somebody can't wash their face with a typical cleanser like Cetaphil or a soap, there's something wrong.
Right.
And so it's been proven that rosacea has a problem with the skin barrier. And the number one thing that I like to recommend is to repair the skin barrier. So my rosacea patients, regardless of their skin type, oily, dry, super oily, they have to moisturize twice a day or they won't get that much better.
Right.
Whether I give them the right medicines, the antibiotic combination of everything, I throw the book at them.
Right.
Unless they moisturize, and I try to convey that to them, they probably won't improve as much as they could.
So number one, it starts with building the skin barrier back.
Rebuilding. Because rosacea will kind of suck it out of you for some reason. I don't know why or how, but it does. And then secondly,
can you, before we go into the second tip or step in this process, can you maybe tell our viewers or listeners a little bit more about what the skin barrier is? Because a lot of people don't know. I try to have this talk in clinic with patients, and it's new information. So I feel like people would benefit from hearing.
Well, I don't know either. I mean, to be honest with you,
the
the science is very challenging, and the basic science is even more challenging, regardless of the fact our skin is our natural protector.
Right.
And so it protects our bodies and the underlying structures from organisms, from radiation, from all kinds of things. And so if the skin barrier is damaged for whatever reason and or compromised from certain skin conditions, those skin conditions lag in improvement. And so whatever the makeup is that I don't think our viewers necessarily need to know today, there is a issue. There's a disconnect between what the skin is capable of and what it's putting out there.
Right.
And so
you need to almost normalize it.
You need to, and it's summertime, so who wants to put on a moisturizer?
Correct.
It's 95 degrees and sweaty. But when you come out of the shower, you got to put on your moisturizer.
Right.
And I also request that my patients wash their face with a cleanser twice a day, regardless of how dry or sensitive they are. I'll find one that works for them.
Okay.
Typically, it's Cetaphil Gentle Cleanser or CeraVe, but
Yes.
I do ask them to wash their face twice a day, particularly if they wear makeup, and I do ask them to moisturize twice a day.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll accept the nighttime routine where they skip the moisturizer, but I encourage it. Now, secondly is sun. Number 2 or number 1 is sun.
Okay.
Sun will worsen rosacea no matter what. It will make it terrible. If it worsens the skin barrier,
Yeah.
it'll damage the skin barrier, it'll dry it out, it'll make rosacea worse, but then it also flares and aggravates rosacea. So it's part and parcel of any treatment is moisturizing and sunblock. Before I even start about medications with the patients, that I have to convey to them right off the bat.
We are the sunshine state, so how do you tell patients to?
Well, so they need to protect their skin. So in the morning, if you're not going to the beach, to the pool, to the park, you're just going to work, you have to use a daily facial moisturizer no matter what. Whether you're going to plan on staying home, it doesn't matter, because what winds up happening is patients decide Saturday they're going to stay home, they're going to watch football game, but then they go outside, they want to get their mail, they get stuck talking to the neighbor, the dog needs a walk, there's a leaf I need to pick up. By the time they're done, they're getting sun.
Okay.
So it always happens that way, and I always get
Yeah.
that. So I come in, they're all red, and I'm like, well, what happened? Well, I stayed home all Saturday, I didn't do anything.
Mhm.
Yeah, but did you go get the mail? Yeah. Or did you clean the pool? Yeah. Did you talk to the neighbor? Yeah. Did you go get gas? Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's crucial to put that daily facial moisturizer next to your sunblock and put it on every morning, regardless of what you plan on doing, because sometimes your plans change and you forget.
Mhm.
Now, if you know you're going on the boat, you know you're going to play golf, you know you're going to the park, you have to take the block with you. That's another thing patients will not do. You got to put the stuff in your pocket.
Mhm.
I have sample sizes I'm happy to give out, but you have to bring it with you. One application of sunblock is not enough, regardless of your medical condition. You have to apply sunblock
How often?
every 2 hours.
Okay.
If you're swimming every hour, regardless of your medical condition, but particularly for rosacea.
Yeah.
And so those are
No
number
wiggle
one.
room with that.
Number one, and number 2, why would I ask a patient to stop eating cheese or not drink red wine at a celebration or try to eliminate heat or try not to
Right.
work out or try not to get stressed? It's nearly impossible. I would
Right.
rather try to do things that are a little bit more proactive
Right.
and work on those things down the road. Personally, in my practice,
Things that are full well in their control.
in their
that-
control.
Yeah.
In my experience, regardless what the National Rosacea website says and all the books say, I have way more luck and ability to improve a patient's condition with those 2 things than I do with challenging them to not drink red wine or eat cheese or exercise or be out in the sun. That's not practical to me.
Right.
It's more practical
Pick
to
your battles.
pick your battles. Now, some of my rosacea patients who need more than just topicals, more than just those things, they need pills, they need several series of pills, they need additional non-steroidal anti-inflammatory topically, then I will ask them to please consider switching the type of wine that you drink and
Mhm.
or the type of cheese that you eat and not make it so sharp. There's things that we can do,
Okay.
but the simplest are those 2. And then we can go down the road of how to treat rosacea. Now, I want to impart to everyone listening that rosacea is chronic. And that's a third thing that I see all the time when patients come in, I'm not better, from other doctors. And I tried this cream, I tried that cream, but I didn't get better. Well, they have the right creams they bring. I see them, they're
Right.
the right prescription. But no one sat down to explain to them that you have to stay on these for life.
They thought there was a finish line.
Yeah. And then they look at me like, for life? I have to do what for life? I'm not in jail. What do you mean for life?
Yeah.
What are you talking about, doc?
So many times we have those conversations.
Yeah,
They all
it's-
go the same.
It's
Yeah.
frustrating
It
to have to
is.
sit down and explain it because the book stops here. I got to fix you, and I have to
Yeah.
explain this to you. And it's a long visit,
Yeah.
and they're not sick.
Right.
I don't want to take this. I don't want to do this.
But you have to be the bearer of bad news.
So the
but
way-
once we deal with that, and I say we because I also deal with rosacea. I've got a load of fun, skin conditions that I've dealt with. But once you accept it and then you do what you can, you get it in control, and it's not like you're dealing with the symptoms for life as long as you know what to do. That education's so important.
Well, there's a couple things I also put in perspective for the patient. So you won't flush and blush. So you won't show sometimes your emotions. You won't wear it on your sleeve.
Mhm.
You'll be able to do certain things if you're on the medication chronically. So you will have less, no matter what.
Less episodes.
You'll have less breakouts. Like you're not gonna have necessarily wake up one day from a night out and pimples everywhere.
Yeah.
So that'll help. And then what I say to patients is like, well, so it sucks. Yes, it's chronic. Yes, you have to do a medication, it's a cream at night. But there are some patients who have other chronic conditions. Like personally, I take high blood pressure medication. I've been doing this since I was 21, and that's a chronic condition.
Yes.
And there's some patients who are unfortunately diabetic. Some patients have gout. These are all chronic. There's no cure for these conditions, unfortunately. So the human body screws up and does things weirdly. And then so some patients have a litany of problems. Some patients have one. But
you say these are, they're not curable, but there are ways to alleviate. Like a lot of
of
people
course, but
with diabetes, high blood pressure are able to turn to diet. And, interestingly with rosacea, there's certain things that you want to avoid with the diet. But I think that just kind of goes to prove the point that you're already making, that yes, you have a chronic condition, but you can alleviate its presentation.
It's all together, exactly.
Yeah.
All the things that we do that we have the power to change have to be kind of included, and they're all together. They're not just separate. So diet, exercise, proper skincare routine, all that kind of helps.
Right. All right. Is there anything else that you want to add regarding rosacea specifically in the summertime, or I mean, it's a year-round, life-round sort of thing, but any special notes just on this particular season, in addition to moisturizing to increase that skin barrier, having a regular block and reapplication if you're going to be in the sun?
This is a great question. So because we're gonna try to focus on the fact that it's summer, there's a couple of things to consider. Definitely sun and sunblock, because it's summertime, people are outdoors more. Definitely moisturizing, because even though you're sweaty and hot, you have to restore the skin barrier. And the more you sweat, the more dry you get. So the water evaporates off the skin and takes the water with it. And so you may think that you're sweaty and all full of water, but you're getting dried out the more you sweat. The more you swim, you're getting dried out. So it's summertime, people in the pool, chlorine, you have to wash the chlorine off immediately with just water, and then try to moisturize every time you're in water. Because as you dry off from the pool or the ocean, that water on your skin evaporates and it takes water with it, and so we get dried out. And then
probably internal hydration too, right?
It's also important. But then another thing that I want to throw out there is that sometimes we have to give patients antibiotics for rosacea.
Okay.
Both topically but by mouth sometimes. So one of those is called doxycycline, and that will really improve rosacea, sometimes in a month, sometimes in 2. Some patients are on it for a long period of time. There's a doxycycline that's extended release, that's only 40 milligrams, called Rosacea, that some patients take chronically. But the bottom line is that it makes you photosensitive, and in the summertime you have to be very careful if you're on that antibiotic, because even if you go outside for 5-10 minutes, whereas before you could, it'll make you a lot more photosensitive. So if you think that you're not going to put your daily facial moisturizer on, take your doxycycline, and then go talk to the neighbor for 20 minutes, you're going to not just get a flare-up or rosacea, you're going to get a sunburn, because that doxycycline will make it a lot more photosensitive. So if you have that in your cabinet, that's another thing to consider, particularly in the summertime, because there's a lot more photosensitive. It's almost like 100 to 1, where you can just be outside for a second and get a sunburn.
Wow.
That's another thing to consider in the summer.
And it sounds like sunburn will then contribute to that skin barrier,
for sure.
And then it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, but who wants a sunburn?
No, nobody wants a sunburn anyways. I don't. So, all right, is there anything else you want to add, or we'll just film a separate take later?
Okay, no, this is a good start.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining and for educating us here today. And we're hoping everybody has a fantastic summer. Have fun.
Have fun. Be careful.